Now, I've just been going through my championship research over the international break ahead of the weekend, and just looking back on the last round of matches, and something interesting cropped up for me in Graeme Jones' last post-match interview away at Derby. Luton beaten 2-0 at Pride Park. Very low scoring, a very low XG encounter, not many chances in the game at all, but 2 goalkeeping errors from Simon Sluga, who arrived in the summer. And not for the first time. I think Luton have conceded 16 goals from open play when they've projected to only concede around 9.5 goals. I think the difference, a big part of that difference you can put down to Sluga's mistakes. He's made a few mistakes already this season. But how a manager deals with it, I always find fascinating, in any situation really. But this is one good example of how different managers use different ways based on their own personality to deal with the situation and context. So, Sluga's made these errors, and for many managers, the instinct is to go out and protect the player and defend them in the media straight after the game. But Jones hasn't. He's essentially slung him under the bus after the game and said, the result is down to the goalkeeper. He keeps making mistakes, and I've got 13 other players to think of who've all done the jobs properly, who've all done exactly what I've asked of them in the week leading up to the game, and they deserve better. It's unfair on them that this goalkeeper keeps making mistakes, which is obviously a unique way of looking at it. It's not something you hear too often. Now, this comes down to the decision-making process that Jones uses. To put this into context from a myers-briggs perspective, we have 8 different cognitive functions. 4 of them are information gathering. Forget those, that's not what we're talking about at the moment. We're talking about the way a manager makes decisions and the evaluative process that they use to say, right, okay, this is how I'm going to deal with this situation. So there's 2 main styles of decision-making process. There's a thinking decision-making process and a feeling style of making decisions. Thinking is logical. It doesn't really take human perspectives into account, how decisions will affect people and the impact it's going to have on either individuals or a group dynamic. Whereas feeling is all about that impact on emotions. Now, initially, you would think that this is quite brutal. It's a thinking approach. This is, he's thinking in terms of logic here and not thinking about the people's emotions at stake. But it's not. It's a feeling decision-making process that he's made. And Jones is very much about those human dynamics and how what he says and does affects the people around him. And I think that's evident in the fact that he says, I've got 13 other players here who've all done the work, that I've asked of them this week, and it's unfair on them. And where that comes from is basically, there's 2 types of feeling. There's 2 feeling cognitive functions. There's introverted feeling and extroverted feeling. Now, introverted feeling is all about the individual. It's about individual expression and looking, basically managing those emotions on an individual level. How does what I say or do impact on the individual? Everybody's got a right, to be themselves and so on and so forth. Whereas extroverted feeling is more about group dynamics. It's more about the collective, and it's quite common for extroverted feeling to essentially throw one person under the bus if they're not adhering to what the rest of the group is doing and not basically towing the party line and buying in to the same extent or whatever it might be. So in this scenario, Jones has basically taken stock of the situation, and he's thought, no, the feelings and the emotions of these 13 players who've worked really hard and not got the rewards is more important to me than how this one person feels, the goalkeeper, in terms of he's made his mistakes. He's probably weighed it up and thought, well, he's going to be feeling bad anyway. Am I really going to compound that anymore? He's going to have to come through these confidence issues one way or another. It might toughen him up, and it might be better for us in the long run if he has to go through this process and deal with these confidence issues and come back stronger for it. We might all benefit. So in that regard, I've got no qualms about, you know, calling him out and making him just totally solely responsible for this defeat. So that's basically how extraverted feeling can work as a, you know, as a decision-making process. And when you know what you're looking for, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not something that we should say, well, that's bad management from Jones. You'll see it as bad management if you don't use extraverted feeling and don't understand it. But there's other ways further down the line where this kind of management style can benefit Jones, and it can reap rewards from having, you know, done what some people might consider a bit harsh to treat the goalkeeper in this way. So it's just something that I found interesting that cropped up, and an example for me to explain and illustrate how the different decision-making functions work, and in particular extraverted feeling.